Hello, everybody, and thank you for being a part of a simple walk. We just so appreciate you um, uh, wanting to be a part of it. Some of you we have invited, some of you have requested to join. And Terry, before we get into why we're making this video today, can you just give an overview of why did were we talking about starting this uh, Facebook page, A Simple Walk? Can you just throw that in there real quick before we talk about this?
Well, one of the things that Scotty and I do is, well, we study the Hebrew Scriptures. We are students ourselves and have been for years. And now we are at a point where not only are we students, but we have an opportunity to share with anyone else that may be interested in learning about the Hebrew Scriptures, primarily the 5 books of Moses, and even for me, the book of Genesis, which has been a major part of my life for about 4 or 5 years now. Um, every time I get to about chapter 9, I'm back at chapter 1. I haven't really got past chapter 9.
Yeah.
But anyhow, in our sharing, some of you know, and Scotty's videos he does up there in his local area, we're getting requests for, like, asking us, where can we learn this? Where can we study this more? And so we created this Facebook group for that purpose, to learn simply and the meanings of the Hebrew text, how it's applicable for our everyday life for us in the way that the Creator intended. It wasn't intended to be some deep theological religion. It's just a way to be a human being here on the planet the way He wants us to be. And we just, I guess that answers your question, don't it, Scotty?
That's good. That's good. Now, the purpose of today's little video, and we don't know if it's going to be little or not, as all of you know, preachers of sort, we say, let me speak a short little message, and our clock does not work like everybody else's clock, so I just want to throw that in. Terry, you put a post, and I want to do a share screen real quick. And the reason we're here today is we want to investigate further this thought, and I just want to go ahead and go on to it. Is that okay, Terry? Do you have anything else you want to say before I go on to this?
No, just I don't have a watch on.
Okay. Terry posted trying to start a discussion, and that's what we want in this A Simple Walk. We want a discussion. If you don't know anything, that's fine. I'm not saying you don't know anything. If you don't know what's going on in the discussion, that's fine. We want you to read through the thread. Many people don't read through that. And so, but there were a couple of things some friends of mine brought up and wanted us to kind of discuss it a little further. And I thought the best way to do this would be through a video. And I think you did it as well, didn't you, Terry? You thought this
Yeah. Sometimes it's a lot easier to do the video than it is to try to type out everything that's on your mind.
Right.
It can get very lengthy. I know our videos can get lengthy, but a video sometimes is easier than trying to sit and just read.
Right. And sometimes people will listen to the video before they will sit and read. And that's just the nature of who we are.
Of our generation, yes.
Yeah. So now your original post for the discussion was this area right here, and I guess everybody can see that. Can you see that, Terry?
Yes.
Okay. The behavioral guidelines concerning theft. Let's discuss it. Prohibition of theft, and then it said whatever benefits you receive in this world, let me read that again, whatever benefits you receive in this world, make sure that none of them are at the unfair expense of someone else. Now, Terry, I need to apologize to you because I took people's intent away from this original thought that you put on here, and I asked a question, and it kind of took everybody off this original thought. The question was, this behavioral guideline concerning theft. I would like to start the discussion by asking, is this part of the Ten Commandments, and or was this in place from the beginning, such as in the garden, before the flood, after the flood, before the giving of the Torah, or was its first mentioning after the giving of the Torah? And Terry, you had a wonderful, I had several people, especially we've got a couple of pastoral people that are kindly watching the and into the a simple walk. And Terry, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you discuss it. But wait a minute, before I do, there's a lot of people that do not understand that we had a lot of these behavioral guidelines as we're discussing. And this one we're discussing now is the discussion of the behavioral guideline of theft. And it actually was already put in place even in the garden. If I can say that way. Am I okay by saying it that way, Terry? Is it
exactly? Matter of fact, Sky, since you bring that up, go all the way down to the bottom.
Let's go all the way down.
We'll bring this up first. There's a quote from Rabbi Hirsch that I really, really like on his.
Now, explain who Rabbi Hirsch is real quick for those of we're not going to take a lot of time, but just explain who Rabbi Hirsch is.
Rabbi Hirsch is a rabbi who lived in, I believe, the area of Germany during the 1800s. He was very knowledgeable, and what I like about I have his what's called the Chumash and also Tehillim, or we can say the study of the 5 books and also Psalms. I have his studies that he wrote on those. And what I really like about him is that he takes the words in the Hebrew, and some of you got to know Hebrew you can still read it, but you can get lost because he interjects Hebrew and English quite a bit.
Yeah.
But he takes the Hebrew of a verse and he'll take part of the passage or a word. He'll go to other passages like in the either the Psalms or the prophets or the writings where that exact word is used. He'll look at the sentence structure and how that's used, bring all that together, and he builds an understanding of what's being said.
Correct.
There's a basic teaching, and sometimes he'll take that basic teaching and he builds on top of it. Doesn't destroy the basic, but he just goes a little bit further. So I really enjoy studying his writings on the Hebrew scriptures.
Now, Terry, I know we're trying to keep this a short video, and I'm not even looking at the time. But in this, using Rabbi Hirsch, I know some people would say, well, I use different commentaries. Now, different commentaries are going to say different things, but I find that Western commentaries, and we've got videos on that if you want to go to those videos or message us and we'll tell you how to get to those, but different commentaries are skewed. This is Rabbi Hirsch, lives Hebrew, speaks Hebrew. He's from the land. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, he was a German Jew,
Okay.
But he was, of the original language, the Hebrew language, spoke it, read it, lived it.
Okay.
So he was a Hebrew.
Okay. Now go ahead, Terry. I just want to.
Yeah. What I like about what he's saying here, when we get into this, the beginning of this discussion on theft from Genesis chapter 2, 16 and 17, he says, the commandment set forth in this passage, excuse me, Genesis 2, 16, 17. The commandment set forth in this passage begins man's moral training for his moral calling, or begins man's training for his moral calling. It begins human history, and it shows all future generations the path in which they should walk. Yep. So what we find here in Genesis chapter 2 at the garden with the 2 trees, God is the instructor and man is the student, and the command is is the instruction, is what he's to be learning. And the issue of theft that we learn about this, and these are categorical. There are seven of these that's found in Genesis, and
seven behavioral guidelines.
7 behavioral guidelines that God gives man. It's found in Genesis. It's for all of us. And as a matter of fact, it's part of the eternal covenant of the rainbow that is established in Genesis chapter 9. And it's also, God didn't arbitrarily just judge the world just out of a whim for the flood. He used the 6 that was given to Adam. The 7th one was given to Noah after the flood. But he gave 6 to Adam. The Adam passed to Noah. He judged the earth by those 6. It was by that was the guide and the weights and balances, however you want to put it. He was the great judge, and we'll get all into that later. But these are categorical, meaning like theft is probably the most deepest subject that impacts almost every aspect of man's life throughout all generations, even to this modern age with electronics and all of that. We call ourselves the modern man, but still theft today. I could go an hour just on some stuff that's going on right now in the United States that violates the prohibition of theft. But what we want to do is we're going to learn from this passage. This is how we study partly how we study the Hebrew Scriptures. And you got any questions before I get started?
No, go right on ahead. You want me to go back to the top?
Go back, going up to the top. I will go just the introducing before I get into the 4 points.
Okay.
It says all right, Israel's Torah scholars and sages have understood the basic guidelines for all of mankind for over 3,400 years. Ever since the day the Creator spoke them to Moses and gave and then Moses gave them to the Levite priests to study and to teach. What we're getting here at this point is the mere fact that we have the book of Genesis, okay, when from Adam all the way up to Moses, to the time of Moses, all of this was orally passed down.
So there was no
written text. There's no written text. It went from pretty much father to son, and the son teaches his family, and then those sons teach their son. It was orally. You taught just like a dad teaching a son how to change a tire on his car, how to do an oil change, and his father taught him how to do that. This was the same way. These principles of living was passed down until the time of Moses. Then at Mount Sinai, we read that Moses wrote down all the words that God spoke to him. So when you read Genesis 2:16, those words came from the Creator to Moses in the exact order that the words are there. Now we read a translation. You will really get into some things, start learning the Hebrew, and it will even take you even deeper. Because the English hides so much. So what we have here is that it was 3,400 and something years ago that our blessed Creator spoke to Moses on the mountain and said, this is what you are to write down. And so there are things in the Hebrew that we will, that actually Scotty and I are going to be doing some videos on our YouTube channel discussing the Hebrew. The Torah scholars teach us an important lesson. There are 7 categorical behavioral guidelines that can be found in the book of Genesis. They're not explicitly stated in one place, like the 10 Commandments. Boom, boom, boom. Actually, they're not 10 Commandments. That's a misnomer. Actually, in the Hebrew, they are the 10 sayings.
Correct.
That is, they're the Devarim, the 10 words, 10 sayings.
I would love to get on that point, Terry, about.
I know, but I'm not going to
go. Listen, no, I would love to get on it, but we're not going to. I'm not going to. I'm going to hold back. You watch our upcoming videos. Go ahead, Terry. I'm sorry.
I'm saying here that so many people are used to that list, and so when they look at the behavioral guidelines, well, where's it listed? That's not how the Creator interacted with man at that time.
Correct.
Israel was pulled out from among the nations and separated. It tells us that in the Hebrew scriptures, to be a priestly nation. So he deals with them differently than he did with us. With us, it was a relationship, like a father to his children. Do this, do that, don't do this, as any parent would do with a child. So that's not in this part of the book. It's not listed in one particular place in a 1, 2, 3 order. They are communicated in a number of ways, in a number of places, before the revelation at Sinai. A few are stated, but mostly there are a few that says point blank this, but the majority of them are implied by the history of the Creator's relationship with man, as we're going to find out here in this. When we study this passage, you're going to see how this is the very first place in the Hebrew scriptures where theft, the moral aspect of theft, is being taught to the new creation, Adam. Okay. And many, like I said here, many of you may have not have heard this before. Many people believe that the first mistake of man was they ate the apple or whatever fruit you want to say, but it's not. There was a lot that went on before they actually consumed the fruit. And that's what we're going to look at. Genesis chapter 2, 16 and 17. And the Creator commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat of it, for in that day you shall surely die.
Man, there's such a lot right there, Terry.
I'm going to be honest with you. What this little thread here does, it doesn't scratch the surface on what that verse teaches us. Even in the Hebrew, it goes so much deeper, which we will be covering through the time.
Yeah.
We can spend some time on that. What he's got highlighted, we could probably spend an hour or two and shoot a video on just what that is telling us in the English and in the Hebrew. But for the plain and simple, what we're talking about, the simple understanding for everybody, every human being, we're gonna see in these points. Then in Genesis 3:6 it says, and when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave to her husband, and he ate. So this is the result, what happened after Genesis 2, 16, 17. Now let's drop down to the points. Point 1, the Creator in a nutshell in Genesis 2, 16 and 17. He says, those are yours, but this one is mine. He established a boundary of personal property. Can we go back up to Genesis 2:16 real quick?
Yeah.
And the Creator commanded. It's actually the Hebrew word vasav, and there's so much there just about the first very word that's in the Hebrew. We're not going to get into that right now. Saying, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat.
So they had every tree of the garden. Now, can I ask you a question, Terry? This is part of the command.
Yeah, they are actually commanded to eat of the trees of the garden. Okay. Every tree of the garden you may freely eat. Yeah, this is assumed that God is telling them, these are the ones you eat from. Yeah. This is what he put on their plate. Remember, Mom says, you're going to eat everything on your plate? You grew up in the South, you know. This is what the Creator put on the plate of his new creation. All these trees that's inside the garden is yours. Now, can you go real quick up to the very first point of what I stated here what it stated here? No, up to the one on theft.
Oh, the very first point, right?
Yeah, it says, whatever benefits you receive in this world. Adam and Eve received the trees of the garden. That was what they received. That was their benefit. But make sure that none of them are it says, whatever benefits, to make sure none of them are at the unfair expense of someone else. See, we're not to use our own property to be an unfair expense to someone else, because this can be deep. Scotty, this can be some people, God gives them a lot, and those who don't have a lot feel unfair.
Yeah.
Because somebody's flaunting what they've been given in front of those who have not been given as much. And because they're not been given as much doesn't mean that they're any less. It's just the Creator made them, and He knows that it doesn't take that for them to be able to live.
Correct.
You see where see where it's going.
Yeah.
So you don't use what God has given you as an unfair advantage over someone else who maybe is not given as much, because that person that's not been given as much, God knows their soul. They know that they don't need it that much to exist on this earth.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're using it as an unfair example, you're gonna cause someone to lust after something they're not supposed to have.
Correct.
So you're not supposed to use. So we see here in the garden that God gave them the trees of the garden. This was what they were given. He set a boundary. He said, of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you were not permitted to eat. You don't have to go all the way back up there.
Okay.
So He set a boundary. Those are yours, and this one is mine. That's a boundary. You can touch, you can use, you can eat, you can do whatever you need from those other trees, but this one here is not yours.
Yeah, we were. Well, I'm gonna let you go on because I got a question.
Go ahead, Scotty.
Well, we were discussing before the video. You used the word boundaries, and before we started this video, we were discussing that boundaries are actually a blessing.
They're a blessing,
a gift, because of the knowledge of what would happen if you did this. Can you throw that in right here? Is this a good place for you to throw that in, Terry? What we were talking about, the child and the mother in the stove. Can you and also read what you was reading now, the other commentary, real quick.
Well, what
is this okay to put it in right here?
It actually applies for everything in these 4 points.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, we can introduce it right here. Okay. There is Rabbi Area Kaplan of blessed memory. He's another great rabbi who actually lived in our time. I think he passed away in the 80s. I think 84, something like that. Somewhere in the 80s, he passed away. Another great teacher of Israel who they still study his teachings and stuff. And he taught this. It's really good. It says, as far as the commandments themselves, he says, we're given by God in order to bestow His highest good upon us. They should be observed in a thankful spirit befitting such a gift.
That's
so. I know I didn't grow up learning that the commandments of God was a gift. So how can we, they are behavioral and natural to teach us how to behave as a human being, but as a gift. But they are a gift. So when we say we don't want this commandment or that commandment, we're saying we don't want that gift from God. But these are gifts. These are gifts because, as he says, it's for our highest benefit. And so let me explain how this right here, these are your trees, this one's mine. You don't eat yours, but don't eat mine. That's a instruction on a personal property boundary. But it says, but in the day you do, you will die.
Yeah.
And so many people look at it, oh man, this is harsh. Our Creator is not a drill sergeant. He is not saying here, I'm raised man up out of the ground, put him over here. Now I'm going to make him do what I want him to do. He's going to line up and salute me and all that. That's not what's happening here.
Right.
What's happening here is he has a brand new creation. He knows there's going to be temptations in this creation's life to do all kinds of different things, to explore life itself. So if you think about this, some of you may have a small child, or maybe your small child's grown now, but one time you were small. You've been in the kitchen cooking. What do? You look to the child and says, don't touch that burner. Do not touch that burner. You know, that eye on the stove. Do not touch it. You might even be harsh. Maybe you want to put a little bit of scare on them. Don't touch that.
Yeah, that's good.
But on the inside, what is the reasoning? Because you love that child so much, you don't want to see that child hurt.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want that child to experience the pain of putting a hand on a red hot burner. So you gave them an instruction, don't touch. Then you may have put some emphasis behind that with a little bit of sternness. Why? You just gifted that child an instruction that will protect it. And that is what our Creator is doing right here.
Yeah. I think that's so good. And thus that being a gift.
It's a gift. It's a gift because the Creator loves his creation so much. Don't do this.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason behind it says, in the day that you do, you will die. Well, parent turns their back. They go over here and grab this pot, and the kid sneaks up behind them, touches it. That's human nature, to do something we've been told not to do.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, his fingers are blistered and they're burning. He's crying. He's hurting. And the parent can look at that child. I told you not to do that. And you can forgive them and you can love them and take them into your arms while they're crying. But it doesn't do away from the fact that they still have a blistered hand.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying? There's a consequence behind our actions. And in this action, they were told, just like if you touch that burner, you're going to get burnt. Our Creator says, if you eat from that tree, you're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean an eternal death. It's this flesh. Yet again, getting into the Hebrew there, we could get into it. It's not what's been taught about. But we see here that there is an instruction, and it's a loving instruction because there's a consequence that's going to hurt the creation, and the parent doesn't want the child hurt, but the child disobeys the parent, and now there's a consequence. But even though you forgive, you're forgiven. I know you did wrong. There's still a consequence. It doesn't take away the blisters off the hand
Right.
of the child who touched the burner. So that's really this intent. He's not a drill sergeant. He's a loving parent instructing his brand new child on how to begin his life, his moral life, his moral living. So then what we see here says the woman likewise saw in the tree that was not hers and delighted in what she saw. And I wrote here, she began to lust or to covet something that wasn't hers.
Mm-hmm.
She saw it and she goes, well, I know he doesn't want us to eat from it, but boy, that sure does look nice. Maybe it had an aroma to it. It smelled, like, going by the pizza place, pizza smells good coming out of there.
Especially when you're on a diet.
Especially when you're on a diet, when you've been told, no, you can't eat that.
Yeah.
You're on a diet. This is actually a dietary instruction. You can eat this, but you can't eat that.
You're meddling now, Terry. You're
not meddling. Oh, but no, I can explain a lot more. But this, in essence, like I said, this is a multifaceted. This is part of the covenant of mankind, which is eternal, as the Creator said. So therefore, it has eternal depth.
Yeah, we may have to put another video about this
Right.
on next week as well, because
So anyhow, she began to lust after it, or to covet that which was not hers. The woman took, it tells us in the passage, the woman took, she pulled that fruit from that tree, and now it's in her hand.
Now,
So
this is the theft part, correct?
this is the theft part. She took and plucked that fruit from that tree. It was no longer attached to that tree, which did not belong to her. Now she took what was not hers. Now she's made it hers. So she took. So her coveting led to her theft.
So can I just reiterate one thing you said, Terry? I know we're just running
Right.
the clock, but all the other trees in the garden, she could have took from freely.
Yeah. Any tree. There could have been a forest of fruit trees.
Free, was that word freely in there?
Yeah. Says,
Freely.
of every tree of the garden you may freely eat. I mean, unlimited.
It's yours. I give it to you. Okay, go ahead.
Unlimited.
I just
You could eat all day long from those trees, 7 days a week from those trees. And
I like this key word you put in here. The woman took.
the woman took. She took what was not hers. She then shared what she had taken with her husband, Adam, and then Adam took it from her. So we get a principle here of we're not permitted to partake and make personal benefit and use out of stolen items.
And evidently that's what she did.
And that's it. So not only we've got coveting, we've got stealing, and we've got the personal benefit from an item that was stolen. Those are three principles of morality that is given to us in these few passages.
Basically the position of behavioral guidelines
Behavioral
being
guidelines.
broken. Okay, go ahead, Terry.
I just want to share a small example. And see, we've got to think this is stuff that the Creator told us. When we look at these, when we look at this stuff, we have to say our Creator in all his sovereignty and kingship, he spoke these things for us. So when we observe them because our Creator said we shouldn't do that. I've got a personal example. On my job, I carry in my pockets ink pens that are mine, but I also carry a highlighter that my employer gave me because I have to make some highlights on some labels and different things that I need to use this highlighter for in my job. Most people know me, I'm a book nut. I generally, a lot of times, have a book in my lunchbox with me, and while I'm eating lunch, we have an hour lunch, I'm sitting reading, and everybody knows me. They open any of my books, that's what they're going to find. They're going to find this is highlighted over here, because when I'm going back, I want to find the things that really jumped out at me at the time. So I'm sitting there, and I read some, oh, that's good, and I reach in my pocket, and I grab my highlighter, and I started highlighting, and then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, I'm not supposed to do that. That's not my highlighter. And I was making personal use out of my employer's possession that I had permission to use for his work, not mine.
So Terry, real quick, I know people's going to say, well, what's the harm?
What is the harm? I stole.
What was the harm?
I took what was not mine. I made personal use of it. And so when I caught myself, I stopped. And I'm sitting there. I was in the lunchroom by myself. And I just spoke to the Creator, and I said, I just stole. Forgive me. I did before I even thought I'd done it. And so I had to ask forgiveness of that. And then I thanked him for letting me know that I wasn't supposed to do that.
Okay, Terry, I got to share one more time here. I got to go back up here. So the answer to the question, of the behavioral guideline of theft, when was it actually started? Where
It began in Genesis chapter, well, what we call Genesis chapter 2:16. It began in the garden when the Creator spoke these words to Adam. He spoke them to Adam. And then Adam was to orally teach his wife.
And thus it passed from generation to generation.
And therefore it was supposed to pass from generation to generation to us today.
That's, Terry, we took a long time to tell that.
I'm sorry.
No, it was good. It was good. It was good. I hope everybody watches. And Terry, I wanna, you know what? We need to do this again, maybe next week. Pick up, because I know there was a lot of things that you yourself and I wanted to implement in there as we were just going through those specific, that beginning thing. You think we can do this again next week?
We probably can, or directed at something else. Like I said, some of this stuff is actually going to be covered in the next few videos that we're doing for our YouTube channel.
And
Sacred
what is
Odyssey.
the YouTube channel?
Our YouTube channel is Sacred Odyssey, Intellectual and Spiritual Quest. If you look up Sacred Odyssey Videocast on YouTube,
yeah,
you can find our videos there. But some of this stuff will be being covered in the next few videos. Probably the next 4 or 5 videos will actually be covering Genesis 2:16 in a more in-depth.
Yeah. So go look at those. And again,
I'd say that'd be where to go instead of doing another video on this one, because we're going to be covering this same topic in the next few videos.
Yeah, you know how I like those videos. I like doing videos. So okay.
Well, when you get two preachers together,
yeah,
or former preachers, however you want to put it.
Yeah. So Terry, we're going to bring this one to a close. Are we?
I hope those whose questions maybe not only helped answer them, but also help them have a few more questions.
Yeah. All right. Is that a bye?
It's a bye.
Bye.
We'll see you next time on A Simple Walk.